Hi all. A common failing in most martial arts schools, um, and that is that in most martial arts schools, there's nobody there that's actually been in a street fight, or a quote unquote real fight, as I prefer to say. Um, Most martial arts instructors have never been in a life or death fight, or even you know, dust up in the street. And this creates certain problems for martial arts schools. Um, and it undermines the value of martial arts training. Um, this is less of a problem with styles like Muay Thai and um, boxing and that sort of thing, because you spar full power against another opponent. And it's a little less of a problem for schools who go to opens. Open competitions are exactly what they say they are. Uh, if your instructor does not like you to spar against other schools or does not allow you to spar against other schools, you can go to an open as an individual. And there you will spar against multiple other schools and multiple other styles. Um, a downside to opens is that a lot of them um, have no knockout rules. So it's a little safer than maybe it should be. Um, but that's another great way to get some um, fight experience. Real fights, however, are not ring fights, and that goes for boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai and everything else. Um, as I said, Muay Thai fighters and boxers and guys who go to opens and stuff like that, you know, they stand a much better chance than the average martial arts student. But you know, you need to understand and recognize that the guy you're trusting to teach you how to fight has most likely never been in a fight himself. Um, it's different. The adrenaline rush is different. The adrenaline crash is different. Um, Sometimes the police get involved, and that's different. Um, you can find yourself facing charges for defending yourself, and that's really unpleasant. Um, and that's not to knock on the police, as a matter of fact. Um, you know, a lot of martial arts schools don't teach legal fighting. Um, Muay Thai, um, boxing, kickboxing, well, American kickboxing, uh, Salat, some of the other styles, they're more or less legal. They don't teach you to punch people on the ground. They don't teach you to break bones. Um, you know, so they're more legal. They're less likely to get you in trouble with the authorities. Um, if you get into a self-defense situation and you break somebody's bones, there's a strong possibility you're going to jail. You might not stay there, depending on how you handle yourself. But I did after fight, and for those with an interest in how to deal with what happens after a fight, watch my after fight video. Um, you know, your teacher should be teaching you pre-fight, fight, and after fight, and a lot of them won't, um, because it doesn't come to mind because they've never had the experience. Um, and I find that to be a real flaw in most martial arts schools. Um, you know, again, this is the person that you're, you know, relying on to teach you how to fight for your life. Um, and they've never done so. Um, I know a lot of teachers have been bouncers. I was a bouncer. If you know anything about it, you work in pairs, you work in teams. If you're in a decent place, you work in pairs, you work in teams. Nobody fights alone. And you're not there to kick somebody's ass. You're there to get them out the door. It's a very different um, reality than street fighting. Executive protection, same. Uh, Not necessarily there to get them out the door, but you're there to keep them away from your client. Um, I worked executive protection for a year, so not the longest time in that field, but in that year, absolutely nothing happened. We predicted possible um, points of violence, and we avoided them. And that's executive protection. You're not there to shoot people. You're not there to beat people up. You are there to avoid confrontation at all possible costs. And, you know, the more you know about it, the better off your client is. Your client should never be bothered while you're protecting them. Um, you know, so again, just because a guy has executive protection experience doesn't mean he's ever been in a real fight. In fact, if he has executive protection experience and he's been in a real fight, he wasn't very good at his job. Okay, we're going to 7 minutes here. So, a common flaw in, or failing, or call it what you will, in most martial arts schools is that your instructor has never been in a real fight. Maybe in high school, maybe in grade school, and believe it or not, that matters, because at least you've been in one real fight. Probably not life or death, but at least it was one real fight. You know how to deal with the adrenaline rush. Hopefully you know how to deal with the adrenaline rush. Hopefully you know how to deal with the adrenaline crash. And while you weren't dealing with the police, you were probably dealing with teachers, and you get some idea what happens before, during, and after a fight. And those things are important. Probably the most important videos I've done. Pre-fight, fight, and after fight are probably the most important videos I've done. Okay, so that's my bitch. If you're curious, ask your instructor if he's ever been in a street fight. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say 95% of them haven't been. And it matters. If parting thought here, if you're in a school that doesn't allow you to compete with other schools, go to an open. They're everywhere. Check out the North American Sport Karate Association. They have fights. They have open competitions just about everywhere. You can compete with forms. You can compete with weapons. You can compete hand to hand. Fighting kumite. My only bitch there is that they often don't have, or they often have no knockout rules. My last sport fight was the North American Sport Karate Association. I think they called it the Brooklyn Battle. And as a matter of fact, I lost in points. Still a little miffed about that, actually. But anyhow, that's that to that. If you want to check yourself out against other styles, and you really should, go to an open. And if you're curious if your instructor's ever been in a real fight, ask them. Um, it helps. It really helps. It helps make any martial art more effective. Okay, David Edwards, thank you for your time.